Horror is an incredible and fascinating genre spanning from film to books and everything in between. And horror would be nothing without the talented illustrators and special effects artists that create the amazing, gruesome monsters and gooey, gory goodness that we love to see on screen. And today, dear acolytes, I get to sit down and discuss the gruesome goodness with one such artist, the ever-talented Smogteeth. Smog is a horror VFX artist focusing on both illustrative art and physical horror effects.
I am Smogteeth. I specialize in monster creation that goes for concept art, sculpture, production, so casting, paint work, finishing work, bringing things to life, whether it's masks, prosthetics, illustrations, anything that's really horror. I adore it. My whole spiel is that I from concept to production is my whole go-to. So if you guys like monsters, hopefully you'll enjoy my work.
And while horror is a genre beloved by many, there are individuals who get the heebie-jeebies at the idea of being involved with something a bit messy. And one has to wonder, for those who enjoy horror, how does one get to a place where you seek such a thing out, or even start creating content for the genre of our own volition? Which sort of came first for you, the art or the monster makeup making? Like, how did that happen?
Okay, I am going to ramble, so hold on to your butts. Here we go.
Let's go!
So, little Smogling, was raised in a Christian home, a sweet little Christian home with a bunch of siblings. So there was a lot of getting up on Sunday, dressing your Sunday best. Everybody's wearing their Sunday appropriate outfits and blah blah blah, and mom wants you to go to Bible school and make friends, and everybody's wearing their skirts and their earrings and their hair's all did and all their makeup and blah, 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 blah. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Some folks, that's just how they live, and I love them for it. They're great. But I think this goes for a lot of people. It doesn't have to be this necessarily type of growing up in this environment. But I think when you're oversaturated in a certain culture or even just environment growing up, you kind of get bored of it really quickly, so you look for things that are different, and anything that's different is exciting. I started looking at bugs and creepy crawlies and snakes and stuff like that, and I thought they were just the coolest thing because I didn't get to see them up close very often. Mom was terrified of them, and I had several brothers at the time, so they were the only ones that really indulged my need to go look at creepy crawlies and play around with them and learn things about them. And go to the library and be like, oh, let's get this book on beetles, and oh, they've got grubs, and oh, that's so cool, and maggots and flies and blah blah. That's where I think the fascination with unusual things started, is just kind of being surrounded in a certain environment, and then being, I hate to say bored with it, but basically bored with it. You have that ADHD childhood imagination, so when it's everything's bright colors and pastels and pale jeans, you kind of just oh, okay.
No, that's very, very fair. I totally get that.
Yeah, but I got very lucky growing up. I really, really did. I had my mother on my mother's side was the go to church, and do all the nice things and everything like that. My father was not that. For those of you listening, if you've ever seen The Breakfast Club growing up, my mother was, I forget her name, but she was the title, the princess, the one that was dressed nice, and she was, valedictorian and all that. That's my mom. And then my dad is basically John Bender. He's the exact opposite. He was the criminal. He's the bad boy, quite literally.
Very opposites attract then.
Oh, yes, very much so. And he also kind of encouraged my my exploration of critters and stuff like that. I think we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, but when I went to visit my father, he actually had cable, so I was able to access Animal Planet, so I could learn even more about these crazy critters. And my dad, he didn't sleep very well. He had 2 or 3 jobs at the time, so he would sit on the couch and watch TV while I slept on that very same couch. And I think one day he just woke up and he just came and sat down on the couch and started watching TV. And normally I sleep through it. He doesn't have the TV on too loud, but
Oh.
He happened to be watching, I think it was the second Blade film. And I happened to wake up just as somebody's throat was being ripped open, and there was teeth, and there was blood, and there was gore, and, and all that fantastic stuff. So I woke up, I flinched, having never seen anything like that before. And my father turned and looked at me and went, "Oh, you're awake." And continued to watch the film, which was insane to me, because if he's watching a TV that's rated, or a show that's rated R, usually he's the type of guy who'll be like, "Oh no, there's boobies on the TV," and he would cover his daughter's eyes and be like, "Oh no, she can't see the boobies." But then when the gore and stuff was happening on the screen, he was like, "Oh, that's fine." So, that is one of my fondest memories of my father, is just that, "Oh, you're awake." And then we proceeded to watch Blade 2. It was my very first rated R movie, and it, to this day, it's still one of my favorite movies of all time, just because that was the gateway drug. And then soon after, it was like I was trying to watch horror movies when I went back to my mom's place, but of course I have so many siblings, and, those little eyes are constantly watching. I was the oldest, so they're constantly watching, so I would start watching something when my mom would be like, "Can you please turn that off? You're gonna give them nightmares." And I'm like, "Okay." I didn't get to consume a whole lot of horror, so unfortunately, like Blade, and I think I saw The Shining at a friend's house. I started to watch it at another friend's house, but I didn't make it very far. I did not like clowns.
That's very fair.
But my stepdad came home one day. He had bought the DVD for Van Helsing, and back in the day when DVDs were a thing, back in the day when they were selling the copies of Van Helsing, there was this promotional thing happening where, like, randomly you could get like a spare DVD. Like, usually there's like the DVD, and then sometimes there's a spare DVD with like the commentary on it and whatnot, but you could possibly get a third DVD or third disc in this DVD packet. And we happened to get that third disc, and this third disc had all the concept art, all the test footage, all the process of animation, and the building of some of these creatures. And a lot of them in Van Helsing were CG, unfortunately, which is really, really sad, of course. But it was just so fascinating to me because, of course, it started with concept art. And me, as a little kid that loved to draw monsters and dragons and ooey gooey spooky things, it made me realize, wait, people can pay me to do that? Holy shit.
It's like, I can do that too.
Yeah, exactly. So it blew my little child mind. I was like, "Oh, I know what I want to be when I grow up." So that's where that kind of blossomed. So thank you, Van Helsing, for all the hard work you've done.
Van Helsing and Blade 2, shout outs to you guys. Really appreciate it. Upon discovering that creating horror prosthetics and masks and other such creepy delight was very much a viable career option, Smog jumped in headfirst into the world of horror and began to search for things that inspired them.
Oh my goodness. How much time we got?
All the time. And for you, all of
time.
it.
Man alive. Like, I could go with some of the classics like H.R. Giger, like, just hands down one of the craziest artists that I'd ever seen growing up, and I thought his work was just so spectacularly strange and mesmerizing almost, that he could create something like honestly horrific, but at the same time somehow still beautiful. Beksinski, yes. Okay. Goodness gracious. I apologize to everybody in the listening arena. Oh my goodness gracious. But I love this person, this dear sweet person, and their incredible hellscapes. I feel like as far as horror goes, it's been a real struggle, especially lately, to create a horror atmosphere without, strictly speaking, characters, and this guy really does that really, really, really well. Like, atmosphere is on point, and it's something that's really, really difficult, I think, to nail when it comes to horror. I believe his name is Alan Williams. If you don't know Alan, he's like a meet in the middle between Giger and Biscuit. I cannot say that man's name, but the two artists I just mentioned, Alan kind of marries the two and meets them right in the middle, and I love his work. I think that's something that I kind of want to always capture in my own work is I like to draw scary, monster stuff, but I also really love adding the element of beauty to it, because I think that's just kind of like sums up my experience with horror altogether, is like, being bored with my surroundings, and when I found something that was different than everything else, the creepy bugs or, the horror movies, like, to me it was new and exciting, and to me it was so exciting that it was fantastic and beautiful, and I loved to look at it more and more. And in fact, one of my favorite quotes from Christoph Gans, the director from Silent Hill, and Patrick Tatopoulos was also talking about this, was the difference between disgusting and disturbing. He said, if you build something that's disgusting, people will want to look away. You don't want them to be disgusted. You want them to be disturbed, because if they are disturbed, then they can't look away. And I was like, yes. Yes, exactly. And I think that sums up my taste in horror as well. Like, personally prefer the horror films that keep your eyes glued to the screen. I don't necessarily like the films that get too grotesque, because then it's just like, well, there's nothing wrong with a bunch of gore or, gore fests. Like, I do enjoy one from time to time, but I think some of my favorites are just like the movie you guys watched last night, The Hollow. Like, it kept you in your seat. There was a story to unravel. There was creatures to explore. There was a mystery to solve. I find that I like that there's people out there, especially younger folk, who are discovering this stuff for the first time, and they're processing it, and they're bringing to the table their own perspective, their own view or vision of how something could or would go. And I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm here for it. I disrespectfully hope that Hollywood perishes.
Me too. I genuinely, truly.
Yep. And I hope that, the next generation gets their own chance to shine and show off.
Now, creating art has many different avenues, both that of higher secondary education and other alternative means of schooling.
I learned, like, too far into my college education that Stan Winston, his family started a school for character arts for basically everything that I wanted to do.
Oh dear.
My ire is at myself and the United States educational system. But anyway, I'm allowed to be upset.
Have a good day.
I love that, more or less. I mean, grant you, people still need to get paid. So, like, if you want to get your full, like, education in the effects industry, like Stan Winston School of Character Arts, they will take you through the entire spectrum. If you want to do animatronics, you want to do puppeteering, you want to do bodysuits and monster suits, you want to do rigging, anything and everything that has to do with practical effects, you can learn from this site for $300 a year. That is it. They might have jumped up to $400. But still, like, that versus today's college education, that feels like a free handout. And even then, you don't have to do that. You can go onto their forums, ask questions, be part of, the discussions there, and they will hand you what you need to know for free. And if not them, then somebody else who knows might tell you. And it's fantastic. Their whole idea behind it is that they feel like trade secrets are on their way out. That you shouldn't keep something secret because it stops the next person from creating something fantastic. And if it's better than yours, oh well, we're going to teach each other, we're going to build each other up, we're going to encourage each other. And, you never know, like, who you might be preventing from creating something awesome by just not helping educate each other. And I really do love that. I think the best way to let somebody down, gently, is to be like, look, I can't tell you how I did it, but I can tell you what I learned along the way. Don't use this. It will burn your skin or leave a stain, or don't use that. It dries too quickly, and or this other stuff is too elastic, and give them, giving hints and reasons as to why something may or may not work, and always, I think, giving advice that will prevent somebody from having to go to the hospital is always good too.
Oh, 100%.
Because when it comes to practical effects, let's face it, a lot of folks from the 80s walked so that we could run.
100%. And
oh yeah,
I think that's actually honestly an excellent compromise in regards to things in the FX industry, because one, you're still teaching something, you're teaching safety.
Oh yeah.
And for 2, you have that nice sort of balance where it's like, okay, you don't want to give up this valuable piece of information, but you can still give valuable information.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
As Smog began to progress in their career as a special effects artist, they were made aware of the American TV series Face Off. Face Off was an American reality television game show style program on the Sci-Fi cable channel in which a group of makeup artists competed against each other in order to create various prostheses like how you would find in science fiction, fantasy, and of course horror movies. There would be a few challenges each episode, and the work would then be reviewed by a panel of judges, and there would be an elimination process until the final winner was chosen. Smog, feeling inspired, was able to put themselves out there and actually become a part of this competition, and by participating in the contest, they learned a great deal about valuing themselves as an artist, as a person, and what not to do and what to do when it comes to working in a professional context.
You know, I never knew how this stuff worked. I didn't know the process. I figured, people just get plucked off the street. They're like, oh, your work is great. Let me throw you on a TV show. And I thought that was, that's all she wrote. No, the process is a lot more complicated. I unfortunately fell for the scam of going to college to get an education in the arts. And my idea when I went to college was I wanted to be a concept artist. But then when I got to college, and first off, I was really excited because I knew that I was going to be surrounded not only by the best of the best when it came to my teachers, but also the other students around me. Because, it's not just people who, start after high school go, oh, I want to be an artist. No, this is people who have thought about it. They've gone through high school being the best artist in their class. And I was like, I could learn so much from not only my teachers, but my peers as well. So I was super excited. The only hangback was I realized that I'm among the best of the best. They're also technically my competitors. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a fantastic field. I was so inspired by everybody surrounding me. But I also had to take a step back and think, okay, if I want to land a job in this field, I have to be, my resume has to be more attractive than everybody else's. So it can't just be down to, ooh, your art is better than so-and-so's. That's not how that works. Arts is completely subjective. So it's not down to style or ability or capabilities. It's down to your skill set, I think. Or at least that was my assumption. So I was like, okay, so everybody here wants to be concept artist. Great. So I was like, well, shit.
All the big fish were taken out of the small pond and put into a much more sizable pond. I see.
Yep. So I was like, well, shit. How do I make myself more of a desirable hire for a company that's looking for a concept artist? I'm like, well, logistically, logically, when you're looking to hire somebody, you want somebody who's got a skill set that ranges, not just, the specifications that they're looking for. They're looking for somebody who can possibly go up and beyond what they're asking for. Now, grant you, this is not a healthy way to think, because when you're hired for something, do not go up and beyond what they're paying you for.
Only do the work that pays you, dear listeners.
Yes. Do not go up and beyond. You will quite literally kill yourself for something that does not care about you in that way. I'm not saying this to discourage you. I'm saying this to ground you and to know your worth. So that being said, my silly little lizard brain was like, okay, well, I have to be more valuable. So how to make myself more valuable? I can do more than anybody else. So I changed my education, my curriculum to not only, art studies, figure studies, character studies, yada, 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 anything that was 2D. I was like, I need to be somebody that can not only draw it, but can make it. And if, God forbid, if they don't have an actor, can act it. I wanted to be somebody who understood the fundamentals of the 3D imagery that they were hoping for, that understood how the materials worked, how the skeleton and the bones that made up the creature worked, how it was supposed to move and bend, and how if this thing was shaped beyond the human form, how we could make up for it with either green screen or puppetry. I had to have that know-how in my brain. So I started to look into sculpting courses. I started looking into casting and welding courses. I started looking into painting courses. When I was in that stage, I realized, okay, well, I'm in the early stages of my education, but I know that at some point it's a requirement to go get an internship, which is another scam, by the way. You should never ever work for somebody for free, even if you're just gaining experience. I ended up interning with a company called Clockwork Creature, and they do these like hyper realistic creature costumes for theater, for cosplay, for convention floors, for performances, for short film. They are fantastic people. Shout out to Clockwork Creature, who kind of shaped me as far as like building creature suits. But yeah, so I interned with them, and I had a background in airbrush work because my side job while I went full-time college, I had a part-time job, full-time college student. I worked for an airbrush booth at the Mall of America.
Really?
And, oh yeah, it was all like
the Mall of America.
Yep, with the t-shirts with hearts on it that says Max loves Lucy and Jennifer loves Steven and, rainbows and butterflies and
I unironically love those because they're so delightfully cheesy every time, because I'm so used to seeing them at like state fairs and things like that.
Yes.
And I love walking by the airbrush booth, so I'm so sorry, but I love them so much.
So when I got hired by Clockwork Creature, when I interned with Clockwork Creature, I did a lot of the airbrush work. I did a lot of painting for components like eyes and teeth, and washes for the horns and claws and stuff like that. And after my internship was over, they're like, "Hey, when you graduate, do you want to come back?"
you
like, of course.
Finger touchies. So do you want to come back, maybe?
Yeah. So I went back and I ended up working for them for, gosh, I want to say 5 years.
Wow.
I ended up working with them. And after a while, I started to get an itch. And the itch was like, we worked with a lot of fur and like fake fur, fake bones and stuff like that. But I was like, we didn't really ever get the chance to do things like in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to get this itch. I really wanted to try a makeup. And I had just discovered an event called Monsterpalooza. I want to create a makeup, and I want to bring it and wear it to Monsterpalooza, because if anybody's going to give me a fair critique, it's going to be at Monsterpalooza, right? So that's when I created my very first makeup, which is I call it the Lichen alien. She's got this big plume of the head. It looks like a giant green leafy halo around her head. She's got claws. She's got like a unique kind of like spacey looking outfit. I worked so hard. I was watching so many YouTube videos. This was the very first makeup I had ever done. I had no idea what I was doing, or at least I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. But and let me tell you, if you guys do your research and you guys are watching videos and you're replicating exactly what's happening in those videos, you may feel like you don't know what you're doing, but you do. Like deep down, you're on the right track. Even if you do mess up or something gets mucked up, it doesn't matter. Like, even industry professionals make mistakes and things get mucked up all the time. I learned that Neville Page and Glenn Hetrick were going to be at Monsterpalooza that year. So I was like, oh, well, if anybody can give critique, it's those two, because they've been on Face Off and they're judges, so they can hand me a critique. I was so excited. So I went to Monsterpalooza. I wore my makeup. I applied it. I think I spent 4 hours making it as pretty as I could. Cool. But then I actually got to meet Neville Page and Glenn Hetrick, and I somehow managed to blubber out, in my wave of nerding out, that I was like, hey, I want to be a makeup artist, or at least I want to try my hand at makeup artistry, and I was wondering if you guys had any, critique for me. And you can see here by Neville's body language, he didn't have a whole lot to say, except for he's just questioning, what did you sculpt this out of? What's this? What's that? What made you decide this? He was very sweet, but I was I walked away from it thinking I didn't get what exactly I was hoping for, but at the same time, I don't think I could have walked away any more happy than I had. Glenn Hetrick, basically same thing, same experiences.
That facial
They had,
expression is
yeah,
everything. Just the
yeah.
wow.
And then I ended up bumping into a friend of mine who I'd known pre Face Off, before they were on Face Off. And they were just like, you could probably be on Face Off. And I was like, you think so? And they're like, yeah, let me contact somebody. And they indeed contacted somebody, and this person contacted me, and they said, here's paperwork, fill it out. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
So I filled it out. I sent it in thinking, nothing's gonna become of it. Like, I'm just a greenhorn. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't go to college for this. I didn't get an education in makeup. I don't have a resume. I don't have, any experience behind this one thing that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a message saying, hey, we need a portfolio from you. And I was like, huh? What do you mean?
This is
what do
unexpected.
You mean? Yeah. They're like, we need a portfolio. And I was like, okay, what?
I need that plankton meme of
yeah.
I didn't think I'd get this far.
I was like, throw me a bone here. What does a portfolio entail? Like, what do you need? And they're like, well, we need like 3 to 5 makeups that you've done. And I'm like, I haven't done any. And they're like, well, then you better work quick because I need it in the next, I think it was 2 weeks.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, I was terrified. I was sweating. So I ended up going to Party City and buying some liquid latex, some grease paints, some alcohol paints. And I contacted anybody that I knew, anybody in the haunt industry. And I'm like, hey, do you have any like crappy prosthetics that I can buy off of you, or stuff that's got like been rejected because there's bubbles or there's defects in it? I'll take it. Whatever you got, I'll take.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my buddies got back to me. He's like, yeah, I've got a couple. Let me send you some stuff. And one of them was like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and the other one was a set of like pointed elf ears.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, how do I take these 2 prosthetics and turn them into 4 to 5 different looks? I'm like, well, shit. So I ended up making like a new makeup out of the old, the lichen makeup, and kind of like recycling it a little bit, sculpted something new, made that. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I grabbed my roommate and I'm like, hey, can I like put paint on you? And she's like, cool, sure, I love it. So I used her as a model. I turned her into like an eyeless witch by pouring liquid latex onto a granite counter, letting it cure, and then peeling it off, and then just putting it over her eyes and blending it into her skin as best as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had these defected dental distortions teeth that I made her wear. Like, they're these sharp teeth. And then I did the vampire look on her. And then I did like a fae with scarification on her face kind of thing, or fawn kind of look on her. And then the last one is I put, I did like a beard laying look on myself, just to show that I could lay hair. Then it was, I think, about a couple weeks, and then they had to do an interview, much like this one, where they kind of like test out your personality, ask you questions, your project, your art, your inspirations, so on and so forth. I did the interview, got that done, and they're like, okay, we'll get back to you if you've made it, another step further in a couple weeks. I'm like, okay. Month goes by, and then I get a call saying, hey. And I'm like, what's up? And they're like, guess what? And I'm like, what's up? And they're like, you've made it to the top 100 competitors. And I was like, well, crap.
Again, I didn't expect to get this far.
Right, exactly. I'm like, well, crap. Now what do I got to do? And they're like, well, the next stage now is we fly you out to California. We hole you up in a hotel room. We need you to bring a makeup that is not in your portfolio, and we need you to apply it in front of some industry professionals just to make sure that as you do it, that you know what you're doing. And I'm like, oh, great. So like, as if I didn't have the lowest amount of confidence in myself already.
That must have been nerve-wracking. Oh my goodness.
It was so nerve-wracking. I forget the name of the guy that was watching me when I was putting on my makeup, but I instantly recognized him. He's worked on, I think it was Avatar, the Blue People one. He worked on several films. I was just like, oh my god, what am I doing here? But that was a unique experience in and of itself, because when we get there, we're told, okay, this is your hotel room. You are not to leave your hotel room. You are not to speak to any of the other competitors. You cannot talk to each other. And I'm like, okay. It felt like really bizarre. It was just a very alien experience. So
it sounds rather uncomfortable.
It was. I was holed up in the hotel room, gosh, I want to say 2 days.
Wow. With no contact.
While no contact with each other. Occasionally they would take us out, you know, if we wanted to grab like food or snacks or something like that. They would deliver us food and all that jazz. But we weren't allowed to talk to each other. We would just kind of look at each other, exchange glances, but we were not allowed to speak to each other. I don't know why. To this day, I still don't know why. I guess maybe they don't want us forming like early alliances or enemies or whatever the case may be. So we're holed up in the hotel. We're given a, I want to, it's a pamphlet, but to me it was like a Bible. It was a thick stack of paperwork, and it was an extensive psychological,
Like an eval?
like an eval. Like everything was like, you know, you got to fill in the bubble for your answer, or please extrapolate on how you feel about XYZ, blah blah blah. How would you handle the XYZ situation, stuff like that. Like it was extensive.
So essentially they gave you a personality inventory.
Yeah, and also just making sure that you are absolutely certifiably sane. Got him.
Got him. Joke's on you, fools.
Yep. You fools.
I get quirky at night.
Yep. So I spent an entire day filling this evaluation out. And then they said, okay, when you get a phone call, bring your equipment down to floor 2 and you'll be, or no, it wasn't a phone call. They were knocking on your door. When you get a knock on your door, follow the person down to level 2, and you're going to be brought into a room, and you're going to be told go, and you'll be timed, and you will have, oh gosh, I think they were giving us like 2 hours or something like that to do our own makeups. While somebody watched us. Something like that. And I was so nervous. I got done in like 45 minutes, and I was scared that was going to be points against me. So I was like, oh no, I feel like, you know, maybe I missed something.
It's finishing your test too fast. Yeah.
Yeah, like, did I miss something? Oh shit.
You don't want to get up from your desk to like go turn it in because you'd like, what if I'm wrong?
Yes, exactly. So I did my makeup on myself. It was like this rock star ghost skull girl glam rocker. And I was taken outside to do some photos of it, and then I was brought up to a room where I needed to talk to a panel of judges. It had none of the judges were from the show, but I believe these were the producers. I never met them outside of anything else. I've never seen them since, so I'm just gonna assume they were the producers. You know, the person outside the door said, okay, make sure you do something that makes them remember you. And so I walked in and I just showed them my Minnesota accent, and I said, well, hello there. And they proceeded to interview from there. I got sent back up to my room, and then the following day we were shipped out in groups on a bus back to the airport. You know, told us not to talk to each other even if we were at the same gate. And I'm like, cool. I don't know how many of us are actually going to obey that rule, but okay. And then I waited, I think it was another month or 2. And then I got a phone call saying, hey, guess what? I'm like, what? They're like, you're on. You're flying out next week. And I'm like, oh. Huh?
I'm getting on another plane?
Yep, you're flying out next week. Start packing. I was like, oh my, what? I looked at my roommate and I was like, what do I do?
What do I do? You
She's
pack
like,
your
you
bag.
go!
You go! You get on the plane! Yeah!
Yep. Oh, it was from there. It's just like it feels like a fever dream. It doesn't feel like it was real at all.
With tight deadlines and completing work quickly but at a high quality becoming more and more prevalent in every creative field across the board, artists are having to find new and better ways to do their work faster without sacrificing said quality. On a show like Face Off, that can be made even more difficult since you're not just working on a large special effects project, but you're also being recorded at the same time. So I remember because I watched the show, and I am dead certain, looking at the pictures that you've shared with me, that I have watched the season that you are on. And one of the things I remember them emphasizing a lot is like, oh, you're going to have crazy deadlines. Like, how much of that is true in terms of industry and your experience? Like, how much of crunch time actually exists? Because in the arts, that tends to come up a lot. And
you mean like compared to Face Off versus what were the deadlines like in real world?
Yeah, I want to know, like, comparatively, Like, how much were they exaggerating? Like, how much of it was, like, pressuring you all for the sake of having an interesting show to watch?
Oh, yeah, it was reality. It was literally 3 days to get these makeups done.
Wow.
Like, so, I mean, grant you the first day, you get half an hour to conceptualize with your sketchbook or your tablet or whatever they gave you. Nothing was your own. You had 30 minutes to do concept work, figure out your critter makeup, whatever it was, and then from there it was 5 hours in the shop, building, sculpting, creating, and then you cover everything up. You go back to your house or home or whatever. You sleep for 5 hours maybe, and then they get you back into the lab for 10 hours, and that's a full day of constructing whatever creation you have envisioned. And 10 hours is up, and then the next day is application day. So it's 5 hours creating application to the actual model, and then last looks is the final hour. So it's literally 3 days. 2 days technically of building, 1 day of application work.
So in relation to your actual, like, real world work time, like non-show work time, how does that line up? Like, do you follow a similar pattern, or do you take longer?
No. Yes.
Okay.
I think that's the one gripe that any industry professional will have against Face Off, is it creates unrealistic expectations on the artist by other industry professionals. Like, you will have people who are not artists, say a director or a producer or somebody who's backing a movie or whatever, and they're thinking, oh, well, these kids on Face Off made this crap in 3 days, then the industry professionals should be able to do it, in half that time, right? And it had a really negative effect on time constraints and expectations on artists in the industry. Now, grant you, not everybody. It didn't happen a lot, but there was a noticeable difference in that people thought, oh, well, you can do this in 5 days or in 3 days. What can you do in 5 days? It's like thinking like, oh, that's an extension. You should have plenty of time to do blah, blah, blah. No.
No.
Yeah, and I ran into that when I was teaching abroad in China. Like, a lot of the people, they were building a school out there, and a lot of the founders of the school were thinking that their examples were like movies from, or creatures or makeups from Hollywood, like actual like Marvel Studios stuff. And they're like, hey, these kids, you've only got 2 weeks with these kids, but they can build this in 2 weeks, right? I was like, no! This is not a one-person job. 2, you don't have an entire team working on all these things, doing the mold making and the casting versus the sculpture versus this and that and the other thing. And also, these people have months, if not years, to work on this stuff. Yeah, it's on the show. Real life, when we were shooting, yeah, it really was only 3 days. So the show, that was real. That was not made up. That was literally 3 days to do a makeup.
That sounds like it would put my blood pressure in places it does not belong. I'm going to be very honest with you.
Oh, absolutely. It puts you under a whole new level of stress, and that I think that naturally creates drama, which is, good for the TV show, not necessarily great for, inner working relationships. But at the same time, like, what's done is done. It was a TV show. That's the bottom line. It was a TV show. It was for entertainment. I still think it was a great opportunity for me as an artist and for anybody who's been on the show as an artist. And I really wish the show, like, despite the detriment that it's kind of created as far as like time constraints and deadlines and expectations, I still think it was a great opportunity for young up and coming artists to kind of show people what they have. And I wish it was kind of still going because of that, because it's such a great opportunity as somebody who wanted to go there and learn. Like, I obviously had only done those few makeups for my portfolio, was trying new things, doing a makeup for the first time. So when I got on the show, I realized that this was basically free college. They were paying for all my materials. They were giving me a minimum wage stipend, for being on the show. but it was enough to pay my rent while I was away. I was being paid to do this stuff that I was basically learning on the spot. So, like, I'd never made a stone mold before, and I looked at my fellow contestants, I'm like, I don't know how to do this, and they're like, just copy what I do. I was like, okay, and I became a sponge, and I was loving every single second of it, because it's just like, I'm learning things that I would usually have to pay out the nose to learn in college, but I'm being paid to learn this stuff right now. So I was soaking in as much as I could, and I wish that was every day.
So would you then say that the positives sort of outweighed the negatives? Would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely, in a heartbeat. Yeah. There was hardships for sure, and I think the advice that I was continually getting by people who were running the set or the cameras or taking us places and doing stuff or whatever, driving us around, the phrase that I heard the most is, remember to have fun. And I was so stressed out because all I could think of, like, my career's on the line, you know, there's millions of people watching, they're going to see me screwing up and making mistakes, and I was so stressed out. But it's just like, at the end of the day, you know, looking back, it didn't really matter. I never really landed any jobs because I was on Face Off. I didn't land any, you know, career-altering opportunities because I was on Face Off. I think every opportunity that I've had is because of my skill set and my capabilities alone. So I think everything I was worried about on the show had no real foundation. So I really wish that I listened to those people, trying to remind myself that, you know, don't forget to have fun. This is an opportunity that not a lot of people get. And I was so in my own head about it. So if I was given a chance to go back on there, to learn more, to be inspired by my fellow artists, to have fun, make connections, and just overall, like, have a friendly competition, because that was another thing. Like, yeah,
that was going to be my next question, because that sort of that statement right there that you just brought up was, remember to have fun. It kind of, speaking from the perspective of just a viewer and somebody that was, you know, putting on poorly made liquid latex appliances on her body in high school, for shits and giggles, like, the phrase "just have fun" really deads a lot of that, because you were there. I imagine you heard it. It's like, oh, I'm gonna change my life being on this, I gotta be the best, that very competitive, I have to go get it attitude.
One thing, I'll lead with this. I think the one thing that I've always loved about the show, I think it was the first 3 seasons of the show, great artists, but absolute shit storytelling. Super dramatic, and they were all about, you know, being better than the other person, and, you know, letting them fail, and you know, it was the golden age of reality TV, where people would just rip on each other and be nasty and backstabby and just rotten human beings. Like, you never were really rooting for anybody on these reality TV shows because everybody was just so shitty. Everybody was just a problematic human being. And a lot of competitive TV shows, reality TV shows, were like that. And then I think it was season 3 or 4, I think it was with Roy, when something was happening with somebody's artwork, and Roy turned around and he was like, this artist is in trouble, and I don't want to win against them because they didn't get their thing finished. He goes, I want them to get their artwork that is out there on stage the best that they could do with what time they had, and I want it to be a fair fight. So he turns around, he goes and he starts helping them. You know, when
I
beforehand
remember
it was always about, you know, yeah,
everybody for
it was
themselves.
always about exactly. But at that point, that was like a turning point, and I think from there, I'm just assuming this, from that episode onwards, like, the ratings went through the roof, because we were so lacking in a competitive anything where there was good sportsmanship that we were thirsty for this. We were depraved and starving of, like, genuine quality people just being people. And from that point forward, Face Off kind of, like, showcased that. Anytime somebody was in trouble, we're like, hey, you know what? they don't deserve to fail just because something went wrong with their mold that they couldn't have predicted, something that was outside of their control. That's not fair. So I'm going to help them out. And it happened on my season. I think it happens on every season where somebody's in trouble and the rest of the team, despite the fact that they're all competing against each other, they come together to help that person out. I love that. And my season was no different. Me and the winner from my season, we had this really awesome, friendly, competitive, like I looked up to him like a big brother, like, but I looked at this man and I'd give him that look, that like defiant little sister look, like, I'm gonna get you. I'm coming. But when it got down to, there was enough eliminations where it's just like the teams weren't much of a team anymore. So then it was finally like, okay, and now it's every man for himself. And everybody had their own makeup, that we weren't on teams anymore. And our host, Mackenzie, she looked at every one of us in the eye and she said, do what you want to do. Make sure that you shine through this project, because this is the one time you're going to be able to shine like a star. And I looked at her, and then I looked at Andrew, and I gave him that look, like, here I come. Here I come, buddy.
I'm coming up behind you. I'm coming up behind you.
Yep. I felt like freaking Babe Ruth pointing to the
pointing to the outfield over the bleachers. I'm gonna get a home run, baby. Yep.
And sure enough, that was the episode I got ahead of him. I was like, aha! I got you!
I win! Well, it sounds like you had a fairly positive experience at the very least.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. There was definitely some times that did not feel the greatest, and I was not having the greatest time, and there was a lot of strife and turmoil behind the scenes. Thank goodness we didn't have cameras like following us to the house for any house drama, which I'm so glad that they stopped doing that, because it's just like, we were so stressed, we were under so much pressure, and that just enables that type of dramatic bullfuckery to happen, and it's not fair, it's not good, it's not healthy. Stop doing that. And they stopped doing that, so I was like, oh, thank goodness.
No matter who you are or what work you do, having the necessary tools for the job is of the utmost importance, and having a favorite tool is rather common amongst those in the creative industry. So I have a totally completely random question for you, so because I'm really, really curious in all of that. Speaking completely practically, in terms of like working, what was the most important tool for you to have? Like, what was the one thing that was like, if this isn't, like, if I don't have this tool, I can't work. What is your most important tool in your kit, do you think?
Like on the show, or just in life when it comes to my work in general?
Let's do both.
I will say for both, it would be any sort of pen or pencil. And because not only can you sculpt with a pen or pencil, if you must, you can. You
can get some good details.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, like, here's the thing, is, like, I have a, it looks like a gun holster, but it is actually just a holster kind of bag where it's where I keep my wallet, but I also keep a miniature sketchbook and a pen in there at all times, because you never know when you see something or get inspired by something or an idea hits you like a hammer to the head. And I always want to have the availability, if I can't sit down and draw it, to at least write it down. And while we were on the show, since the cameras were only at the shop, when we went home, we were not allowed to talk about the projects. We were not allowed to draw. We were not allowed to have any sort of writing utensils, no paper, no whiteboards, no markers. We did not have our cell phones. We did not have laptops. We weren't allowed to watch TV. There was absolutely no developing of any ideas while not on the show, because they wanted to be able to capture that on film. It was so frustrating for us as artists. We didn't listen. We literally used... there was a pool in the backyard, so we would draw with the water on the cement.
That's crazy!
And then if that didn't work, we would use ketchup on the counter. Yeah,
ketchup. Like in packets, or like the bottle? Like
the bottle, a finger painting with the bottle, yeah.
That's amazing!
Yep. Like, we were desperate, man. Like,
That's crazy. Art is a field based in sharing, and it's important that fellow creatives look to each other, as not everybody knows everything. And it's important to be opening to learning and listening to other artists giving advice, especially about the ins and outs of life and going about drawing and creating things that may be a bit more on the darker side. Okay, so jumping off of that, do you have any advice that you want to give to the artistic community, whether that's makeup or drawing or like anything else? Like, if there's one thing that you would want people to know, like, what would you tell them? This is your stage.
I've got 2 bits of advice. And the first one comes from my childhood, because I was raised in, in a Christian home, and I started drawing the spooky stuff, and my mom started getting worried. She actually brought me to our pastor. She was that concerned. She brought me to my pastor, and she sat me down and she showed him the stuff that I was drawing, and she's like, she's drawing all these like these demons and these dragons, and like, should I be worried? And I got so lucky, because there's terrible people out there that would have taken this in a very abusive direction.
Absolutely.
But my pastor took one look at these drawings, and he said, there's nothing wrong with this. She's just giving evil a face.
I like the way that's phrased.
Right. Mm-hmm. I was so happy. Because you know what? He wasn't wrong.
No.
I think that evil is such an important part of storytelling. I think that, monsters and narratives and stuff like that, like, grant you, the monsters are not always necessarily the evil that is happening in any given narrative, because, let's face it, we all love making monster horror movies about people being horrific, but I digress. So I guess my bit of advice is, don't be afraid to tell people that you're just giving evil a face. If they can't understand what you're doing, they can at least understand that. And it's really what saved me as far as an artist goes, from being, told not to draw this or that, or, being censored more or less. So thank you, my childhood pastor. I think it was Pastor Jason.
Shout out,
being
Pastor
understanding.
Jason.
Yeah, no kidding. So that was a blessing to be told that I could keep drawing my spooky shit and continue to be a weirdo. So I would encourage all of you to allow yourself to be that weirdo, to explore the weirdness, the things that you find fascinating or beautiful. If you're not hurting anybody, if you are simply trying to tell a story, I think you're doing your thing. You are honing your craft. I think that is really, really important, because you have no idea where that could possibly take you. I had no idea I was going to be on a freaking TV show, but look where I went.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that bit of advice. And then the secondary, like, the best bit of advice I think I was ever given as an artist, strictly speaking, is a lot of people struggle with, like, little aspects of art, whether it's drawing hands or creating costumes or designing aspects of things or creatures or people or what have you. And so they force themselves to do studies, and it's not a bad place to jump off from. Doing studies of the things that you struggle with, completely understandable. I could never do studies because it was boring to me. It felt like torture. I couldn't do it. But somebody once told me, they're like, if you just keep drawing what you love and what you personally enjoy, you will learn the things that you used to hate. Like, I used to hate to draw hands. Hated drawing hands. Couldn't stand it. Like, I just could not understand the digits and the phalanges. I didn't get it. I hated it. I was just like, every time I draw a person, I'll just hide the hands in pockets, behind their back, behind their head. I will will avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
After that advice, I was like, you know what? Screw it. Draw what I love. What did I love? Monsters. And monsters don't necessarily have hands. So I ended up drawing, like, iguana claws on dragons, and I would like look at how iguana or frog or whatever the feet or creature of what I was drawing, I would draw. And depending on the creature I was drawing at the time, it's not too difficult to draw the similarities between a lizard's clawed hand to a human. It's the same sort of functioning digits and stuff like that. And as I learned about how different animal, claws, paws, and critter hands worked, I started to learn more about the human hand. And it's like, it's not too different, honestly, design-wise. And as I was drawing these creature hands, I started getting better at people hands. Because then it turned into me noticing how my own hands worked and where the veins and the knuckles and the joints and everything were. And as I was drawing things that I loved, I was learning about things that I hated. So if you're struggling with things that you hate, like hands, but you love to draw monsters, just keep drawing those monsters. Draw those dragons, draw those wyverns, those, rickety liches and Cthulhus.
Those
like,
funky little guys.
Those funky little guys, because you'd be amazed how, they may not look human, but they will teach you something about anatomy that you never thought you could learn from something that is not human.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my favorite bit of advice, because they were absolutely right. I inadvertently learned how to draw human hands without studying human hands.
No, I think, yeah, it makes perfect sense, because as you go along, it's like, okay, I need to tweak this to make it look like more realistic or more scary, and then you're going to find yourself just slowly integrating more and more ways, and looking at more and more reference material, and you're going to wind up teaching yourself somehow. So I think that's a beautiful piece of advice. After experiencing Face Off and going through so much growth as a person and an artist, I found myself curious as to what Smog does now and what do they think of their current creative field. What does Smog do now? We're post Face Off. What do you do now? How is life in your creative field looking for you at this moment in time?
Man, it's shaky. Going to college, going through all of that to tell myself, I'm going to have a name in the credits. I'm going to have a monster on the big screen. I'm going to, do this, do that, and do the other things. And I wanted to work for a big name studio. I wanted to work so that my creations would be watched in a movie. But these days, as I've matured and learned, and as, basically Hollywood's being exposed for being the villain that it is, I've recognized that I don't like designing things for people who don't know what they want or don't know what they're talking about. And that can be very frustrating when, as a creature designer, somebody tells you to build something, but they want it to look, in my eyes, ridiculous. And I know for a fact that if I ended up working for a studio, that would be all it is just this feeling of I have zero control, which I don't, and I shouldn't, because I'm not the director. I'm not the one who owns the project or the property. So therefore, my way in is basically a grain of salt. So I can't have that much control when I'm working for somebody else. That's just the God's honest truth. And that is kind of how the world works. So I had to accept that. So recognizing that, I turned towards one of my favorite and fellow artists and peers, Melita Curfey, Miss Monster, better known as. And I love how she just makes masks and she sells them, but she makes what she wants to make, and people buy it. So I said, you know what? I like that business model. I'm gonna try it. Yeah, so that's the business model right now, is just to own my business, to sculpt things that I want, and to build things that I love and enjoy. And if people want to partake and buy the things that I create, then that is fantastic. That being said, I do still think it would be great to be a part of some production. I don't want to work for big name Hollywood, but I think it would be a lot of fun and a great experience to work for an indie group, an indie film, to create something that is what they need, their aesthetic, their creature, and to put it into works and watch it come to life, even if it's just on the computer screen on YouTube. I think projects like that really interest me. I think the largest I'd be willing to work for would be somebody like Markiplier. I love that he's kind of paved the way to let people know that, yeah, you can be an indie creator and people can still absolutely adore your work like it is Hollywood. And Grant, he had the foundation of, being a household name from YouTube, but I like that he's like, you know what, I want to do this thing, so I'll do it my dang self. So
that's so funny that you mentioned that, because that leads us into our final question, which I wanted to ask you. If you could work with anybody, whether they're alive, have passed on, what have you, anybody at all, who would that be? And Markiplier, that's a good answer. Is there anybody else?
Yes. I've never really thought about it that much. Like, Markiplier just came out because he's one of the larger, I guess, groupings of people that I could think of, like somebody who's got a budget and a vision and has a decent understanding and respect for artists.
Knows what he wants.
He knows what he wants, but also the respect for artists is a huge thing for me. I have been approached by people before asking me to join them on their projects. It was an indie short film company that I did desperately want to work with. They did contact me and they said, hey, we need a monster suit for an actor, and he needs to be from head to toe like a monster suit. And they only had a couple $1,000 to offer, and they had a 2-week deadline, and I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I said, I'm one person. I don't even have a studio. I have a bedroom. And I would need 2 weeks just to order the amount of materials that I need to create this project. So it's just not going to happen. So unfortunately, for me, it turned into me, recommending another fellow artist. And that's what I love about the art community is if you can't do something, everybody always knows somebody else who probably can. So I recommended a friend, and he ended up creating one of their more famous and viral short film monsters. And I'm so jealous, but I'm so proud of him at the same time. So kudos to my face-off buddy, Nelson. He did a fantastic job with it. But yeah, I've been contacted a couple times with these folks with, either no budget or too awful of a time constraint and no respect or understanding for how the creation process of practical effects works. And it's heartbreaking. So it's like, I really wanted to work for that channel. I really, really did. But I couldn't. I just did not have the availability. I didn't have the capability. I didn't have the ability in general. And it broke my heart because it's just like, well, does that mean that I need to have my own shop? Does that mean that I need to have XYZ? Do I need to be a part of the makeup artist union in order, just a lot of I started questioning myself, and I hated that too. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't be stopped. And the whole Markiplier thing also kind of happened because a fellow artist of mine got hired on by his team to work on Iron Lung. And she said it's been a fantastic experience. And I was like, gosh, I'm so happy for you. If you guys need anything, please don't hesitate to give me a call. I would love to do anything, even if it's just to weather something or work on the set or just work on something little. I think that would be such a wonderful experience. And she's just she's of course so kind and everything like that. So it's like, I hope one day maybe that could be something. And actually that was one of my New Year's resolutions is you know what, gosh darn it, I'm gonna send out my portfolio. And my friends were like, you can do it, his email's right there. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I sent off the email.
Is that what that tweet was about?
It was. Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yep. And so in the meantime, I'm just going to keep on making monsters and creatures like the boogeyman that I did. It's one of the creatures that I made recently that I'm still so very proud of. And I've got more monsters to come that are on the docket. And I'm thinking I might even do a creature cosplay. One of my favorite monsters that is doable for somebody like me in the space that I have and the budget that I have is, if anybody's seen Attack the Block, the glowing teeth alien monsters.
Yes, I love
those gorilla wolf motherfuckers.
Yes. It's so good. It also makes a great double feature with what was it? Vampires versus the Bronx. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really want to build one of those, like just my own version, my own take on it, to see if it's something I can do to show people what I'm capable of, like what I can do, and just have fun with it. So I'm just gonna continue making monsters, sculpting stuff, selling stuff. I'm currently invited to a collaboration with a bunch of other artists where we choose a genre of something. We each get an archetype. We build a caricature with makeup and costuming, and we do photo shoots, and we share it over on Instagram as a group to kind of just show as like a collaborative effort to kind of like do it. It's kind of like a miniature face-off, honestly. Like, we've been given a challenge with a theme, and we create these looks, and then we share it with the world to show them what we got. So that's coming up.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is all the questions I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for being such a gracious guest and for providing such beautiful insight. For my good people at home, where can we find you? What socials can we locate Smog on?
Oh my goodness. I feel like social media has become such a
hellscape?
Chaotic,
a cesspool?
I think mostly people are just, one, afraid, and two, confused. Like, yeah, there's bad platforms. Yeah, there's like these problems here and there. But the real question is like, how do I navigate these medias and still get my work out there? Because there's all these people saying, oh, don't go here anymore, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, well, I still have to get my work out there, and I cannot rely on just one location. So it's terrifying as an artist right now. So if anybody out there has been feeling lost and like they're a failure for still using Instagram or Facebook, like I honestly don't think there's any shame in it. If you are an artist trying to survive in the most chaotic timeline to exist thus far, and putting your stuff out there is kind of the only option we have. I am on Blue Sky, I'm on Kara, I am on Twitch, I'm on Etsy, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Ko-fi and Patreon as well. All those locations are Smogteeth. Just at me, Smogteeth.
There you go.
All those locations.
I think that's a very important thing. I think that's a very good note to end on as well, that if you're an artist, please put yourself out there and to not stop trying.
Yeah, just be sure to add a watermark.
Yes, add a watermark.
Always.
Check out Glaze and Nightshade.
Yep, and don't let the watermark be like a symbol or like an image of some sort. Make sure that your username is actually on it and legible. Watermark, because everywhere is just rife with AI. I'm personally of the opinion that there's just no escaping it. It's gonna scrape your stuff. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be okay though. I really think it's gonna be okay. We band together, we work together, you use those watermarks, you share your work, you show off what you can do. You do what you love, and the people who also love it will find you. I promise. They really will.
Excellent. I fully agree. Well, thank you so much, Smog. And to all of my lovely listeners, thank you so much for participating, and we will see you in the next one.